I will call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education, which was duly noticed on February 9th, 2024, through posting notification of the press in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 1984. All right, let me back in here. So we can go right to the pledge, Denise, right? All right, the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Millard.
Thank you, President Hayworth. It's my pleasure to introduce the principal of Harrison Elementary School, Dr. Jessica Grant. Dr. Grant has been an educator since 2000 and has been a member of the Janesville School District since 2002. Jessica started as Harrison Elementary as the principal in 2010, and in 2013 was recognized an Administrator of the Year. Principal Grant has 3 master's degrees and a doctorate in education. Dr. Grant is recognized by the Department of Public Instruction as a principal, director of instruction, and superintendent. Dr. Grant, who do you have with you this evening?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Millard. I am super excited tonight because I am joined by 2 of our amazing Harrison Hawks. I have Aubrey here. She is in 4th grade, and her sister Bailey is in 1st grade. I sent out an email to the Harrison staff asking for some suggestions about who would be great to represent our school. And within minutes, both of their teachers separately sent me an email nominating both of them. So I said, oh, that's got to be. They are both fantastic students. They love coming to school. And above everything else, these are 2 of the absolute kindest kids you would ever meet. So I am very, very proud to have Aubrey and Bailey here to represent our school to lead us in the pledge tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, good night. All right, motion to adopt the Board of Education February 13th agenda.
So moved. Second.
A motion made by Lisa, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. We have 2 commissioners absent. All right, safety message, Mr. Hannawell.
Most of you know that February is American Heart Awareness Month. Some key facts, according to CDC, heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. 1 in 4 deaths every year is due to some type of heart disease. This is a nice message before Valentine's Day, isn't it? I just thought of that, sorry. Several health conditions affect this, one being our lifestyle, our age, our history, all increase the risk of heart disease. Half of Americans, almost half, 47%, have at least one of 3 key factors for heart disease: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or smoking. Obesity can lead to high blood pressure and diabetes, as well as heart disease. What do we need to do to take care of ourselves? We need to move more. We need to get at least 2.5 hours of physical activity each week, 30 minutes a day. Now, sometimes people say, I can't carve out 30 minutes a day. Even if you carve out 5, 10, and 15 in different incremental parts, you're doing some good for yourself. Some physical activity is better than none, and most of us tend to say, well, I don't have the stamina to walk on a treadmill or use an elliptical for 30 minutes. Start with 5, start with 6. Each day or each week, increase little by little. Next, eat healthy foods, low sodium, low saturated fat, all kinds of things, more fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Watching what we eat, limiting our sugars and sweeteners. So when you get that Valentine's Day candy tomorrow, you know, put it off to the side. Or, or I can give you some addresses to get rid of it. Watch how much alcohol you consume. Unfortunately, there are studies that are incorrect in that drinking wine, drinking beer, drinking alcohol is good for the heart. Again, we're talking moderation. Aim for a healthy weight. All of us do, but again, being overweight causes the heart to work harder, leading to stroke, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, things along those lines. If you smoke, quit smoking. It's hard, but there are more and more things out there now for people to help you quit than there ever has been before. Reduce stress and improve your sleep. Stress contributes to high blood pressure and heart risk. A lot of times we don't even recognize the stressors that are going on. If you are familiar with a couple of scales that measure stress, sometimes positive events, weddings, getting a new job, buying a house, having a baby, wonderful, great times, but they're high in stress. Those things actually can create problems with the heart. Not getting enough sleep, poor quality sleep. It's not just getting sleep, but getting quality sleep. And know your numbers. Be aware of what's going on with your own body, your weight, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and educate yourself. Don't just rely on your physician to say that your LDL or your HDL is this number. Learn what those numbers mean. Healthy heart tells us what's going to happen, and it's a very important thing. Granted, we focus on it in February in correlation with Valentine's Day, but it should be an everyday thing for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, very good. All right, student presenters to the board, Grace Marotta from Craig.
Hello, members of the school board. I hope you all had a happy holidays and are staying warm in this cold weather. There are many exciting things happening at Craig this month and in the near future. The annual Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly was January 10th at 9:30 a.m. in the large auditorium at Craig. Students shared speeches, cultural lessons, songs, and dance performances to celebrate their culture. National Honor Society sold snacks before and after school every Wednesday from November 29th to January 17th. The profits from all of these sales went directly towards NHS's charity this year, which is Project 1649, an organization dedicated to help homeless teens in the area. Craig Spotlighters Show Choir Preview Night was Thursday, January 11th at 7 p.m. in the Craig Auditorium. Milton High School, Edison Middle, Marshall Middle, and Fort Atkinson High School performed. It was an exciting night full of amazing performances from all of our area schools. The winter formal, or more casually called the Snowball, was Saturday, January 27th at 8 to 11 p.m. in the Craig cafeteria. Students dressed up, brought friends, and had an amazing time dancing as a break from the stress of the semester starting, and a dance to hold us all over until prom. Student council decorated for the dance, created playlists, and brought in cookies and other snacks to make the night even more fun. Student council will be passing out Love Pops on Valentine's Day tomorrow. These are fun slips that come with suckers that students can send to their friends. National Art Honors Society sold popcorn pals for Valentine's Day this year. These include a bag of freshly popped popcorn and a fun, homemade heart figurine that students could send to a friend. Key Club is selling Valentine's-themed baked goods this week to spread cheer and snacks for the student body. On Saturday, February 24th, Craig is hosting the district-wide solo ensemble, where students from the music department will perform various musical pieces in order to win a spot at the state solo ensemble in April. Thursday, February 1st, was one of the 3 blood drives at Craig this year. It was a great turnout, and all 81 donor spots were filled. Many exciting events are coming up within the music department this next month. March 4th is the Spring Orchestra Concert at 7 p.m. in the Craig Large Auditorium. March 5th is the Spring Choir Concert at 7 p.m. in the Large Auditorium. March 9th is the Spotlight Spectacular at Craig in the large auditorium, where the Craig Spotlighters Show Choir will perform their showcase. Lastly, I want to thank you all for listening, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. All right, from Parker, Addison Riley Lean. And I saw pictures of your winter formal, Addison. You were all stunning.
Oh, so we did have a winter formal, and unfortunately, it's not in my notes tonight, but we had it from 8 to 11. I did leave early because that's past my bedtime, so I left around 9:30, but I still had a fun time, and we had about 200 kids show up, so it was a good turnout, but for our first one, it went pretty well. So to begin, my name is Addison Riley Lenas. I didn't say that part, so there we go. February 12th through the 16th is National FCCLA Week. Our Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America chapter helps students explore career areas in the family and consumer sciences and helps them gain valuable life skills. This week, Parker FCCLA is celebrating with a Valentine's Service Project and a Red Velvet Cupcake Bake Night. National Honor Society and the School Within a School, or the SWS program, made close to 100 Valentines for the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs, the WDVA. They are collecting Valentines to send to veterans living at the Wisconsin Veterans Home. Parker National Honor Society will be hosting its annual Red Cross Blood Drive on Wednesday, April 17th. Additionally, the Parker Arts Academy had Justin McDermott, a guest choreographer and professional dancer, present a musical theater dance audition masterclass last week. Janesville high schools were again well represented by the NCWIT Awards. The NCWIT honors 9th through 12th grade women. Award recipients are selected based on their aptitude and aspirations in technology and computing, as demonstrated by their computing experience, activities, leadership experience, and perseverance in the face of barriers, as well as future plans. This award includes automatic induction into the AIC community, a national network of peers supported by professionals, volunteers, and various other prizes. Parker's state award winners for the year include Nazir Gray, Eva Schroeder, and Charlie Simmons. Parker's state honorable mentions include Alexandra Cervantes, Olivia Larson, and Nancy Hernandez Gomez. Parker's state rising stars include Julia Eamon, Peyton Kent, Sonia Mendez, and Joanna Mendez. And Craig's Camila Granja was the state award winner and national honorable mention. So many congratulations to these young ladies from Janesville for all of their accomplishments. Parker DECA leadership teams attended the Rock Regional Business Expo on Thursday, February 8th, which gave the opportunity for great networking and building of professional relationships with our business community. We want to sincerely thank Forward Janesville, hashtag college and career ready, hashtag Parker DECA rocks. Also, as a side note, I did win a 6-month free membership to the Janesville Athletic Club while I was there, and I also got a Bucky book, so I was like, wow. My mom was like, you got all that stuff? I was like, yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to be there. That was fun. Networking, we were networking. I just also got stuff in the process. Parker DECA attended the Finance Challenge Bowl tournament last Friday at Blackhawk Technical College. We worked together to increase our financial literacy, otherwise known as our knowledge of personal finance and economics, and the Parker versus Craig rivalry was very strong while we were there. Craig did end up beating us at the end, but it was a good fight among all the teams. So great job to Parker DECA for that. And finally, an update on Parker Athletics. The winter season has provided several opportunities for athletes to grow as servant leaders within our athletic programming. Athletes volunteered their time for the Salvation Army Red Kettle campaign, coordinated fruit baskets with DECA, participated in Christmas caroling events, volunteered at SDJ's Bags of Hope event, participated in the WASC Leadership Day with the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Parker boys basketball team joined in with the Wisconsin Badgers in their Guarding Against Cancer campaign last week. All in all, our winter season student athletes have done an amazing job representing Parker High School as leaders throughout the Janesville community. Parker Athletics has had many highlights throughout our winter season. We recognized WIAA officials during the Officials Appreciation Campaign with gift bags. Janesville Parker hosted the first ever girls only wrestling showcase for the entire Big 8 conference. We had over 30 female athletes participate from Big 8 schools, and we are hoping this event will be a springboard for additional opportunities for female wrestling athletes in our future. Janesville Parker also hosted the Big 8 Conference Wrestling Tournament for all conference schools. We had many Parker wrestlers make it to the podium, including Dominic McGuire and Caden Brandenburg, who came home as conference champions. We had the opportunity to recognize and celebrate J.J. Douglas, who is now the school record holder in career points and rebounds. Parker Cheer earned third place in their latest competition and will now compete at the state preliminaries on the 17th. Parker had 8 athletes signed to compete at the collegiate level on National Signing Day. We want to congratulate the following athletes: Maya Barnes, who is going to Northwest Missouri State for track and field; Macy Grover, who is attending Wisconsin Lutheran College for golf; Kaylin Minnick, who is attending Clark University for volleyball; J.J. Douglas, who is attending Central Michigan University for football; Paul Kim, who is attending UW Whitewater for football; Terrell Fisher, who is attending Wisconsin Lutheran for football; Antoine Jarrett, who is attending Concordia University in St. Paul for football; and finally Jeff Rowan, who is attending Stevens Point for football. Congratulations to all of our athletes. Parker swimmers finished their season last Saturday in Racine, and we want to congratulate them on all of their accomplishments, including many PRs during sectionals. Parker wrestlers competed at regionals on Saturday. Several individuals qualified for sectionals, including Caden Brandenburg, Braden Gary, Aiden Godwin, Dean Harriel, Avery Keller, Dominic McGuire, Nate Peters, Brandon Saltz, Sean Zabzek, and Carter Wesley. In addition, the Parker wrestling team earned a second place overall finish and is qualified for the WIAA team sectionals for the first time in 27 years, so that's a big deal. As we gear up for the WIAA Winter Tournament Series, we want to thank our school board and the Janesville community for their continued support towards Parker athletics. As always, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to update you on Parker's news and events. As you can see, the winter season has been fairly busy, but our Vikings are doing an excellent job. I look forward to seeing you all next month, and thank you.
Thank you, Addison. All right. We don't have any citizen comments? All right. Consider a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right. Motion made by Jim, seconded by John. All those in favor? Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
That's right. I'd like to ask the board for approval to remove 4.5 for further discussion.
Do we have a
Just, you have to
motion?
second it? I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to take
Well,
out,
you don't actually have to do a motion
Oh, we don't?
to remove
Okay.
something from the consent
Okay.
agenda. So you would just ask Jim and John if they
Okay.
would approve the consent agenda motion without
Okay.
the 4.5.
Commissioner Millard and Hannibal, is it okay to remove 4.5? You conferred and it's okay?
conferring.
Okay, all right. Right, okay, so motion made by Jim and John to approve the consent agenda. We're gonna remove 4.5 and discuss it separately. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes 7-0. All right, 4.5, the employee handbook update.
Thank you. Thanks. This, I am on the policy committee, and we did unanimously approve to move this to the full board. But since then, I've had some questions about the second part, the professional licensed staff as it directly relates to compensation for overloads. If I understand right, currently, the staff is compensated for overload by 1/8 of their salary?
Yes, at the secondary level, it's 1/8 of their salary. At the elementary, it's different. It's 1/16 to 1/32, depending on what they teach.
Okay. And the proposal is to take an average and use that salary average to compensate staff for overload?
Yes, it makes it equitable across the board. So what we do is we take the median teacher salary, which is right now approximately $65,000, and we break that down based on an hourly rate, which is approximately $47 and change. And then what we can do from there is essentially compensate teachers based on the number of minutes that they teach. And so it's different at the high school versus the middle school versus the elementary, because at the elementary, overloads are typically in the specials areas, so we're talking music, art, and phy ed. At the middle school level, it's typically their flex period, which is 40 minutes, and at the high school, it's every day. If they're taking a section, typically it's a 55-minute class, I believe. 47-minute class every day.
So what I'm conflicted with, though, is, so for example, I make $60,000 a year and Lisa makes 40. I'm just, currently right now, we get a percentage of our rates, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but the proposal means we're gonna take an average. So in my case, if I'm making more, I will actually get less because the average has driven down my hourly rate, the way it is compared to today.
Currently,
So-
if you're teaching at the secondary level, you
Right.
would get a little bit less, yes.
Right, so that's why, that's what I'm conflicted with, because we're gonna have some people that are gonna get less, and some will get more just to get to the average.
Yes.
Right.
I can provide you an example. So say we have a teacher, a veteran teacher who's at $80,000, right?
Yeah.
For easy math, 1/8 of their salary, they would get a $10,000 payment for overload. A teacher who makes $60,000 currently under the same system, teaching possibly the same section, would make 1/8 of $60,000, which is roughly seven thousand and change.
Okay.
So there's a difference of $2,500 for teaching the same class. Our hope in bringing this forward is an equitable compensation for all teachers, which means not only are they getting compensated the same at the high school, but at the middle school and at the elementary, where our practice has not been that in the past.
Well, then, what's the motivation to change?
To make it equitable, ultimately, what we're seeing are teachers who are essentially teaching the same subject, who are in the $50,000, $60,000 range, getting less money and working the same amount as those teachers who are making $80,000. And so what we want to do is at 65,000 at the median, we have the same number above and below, and we're trying to make it equitable for everyone.
But isn't that what happens now if we both teach English?
Let's say we
and-
both teach third grade and he's, I mean, we have different salaries.
That's our salary structure, right, that's different. But because we're asking people to go above and beyond a teaching load, we want that to be an equitable pay.
If I would just add that people don't have overloads year after year after year.
Right.
So it's not like I have an overload this year, so I'm guaranteed an overload next year. I might not have an overload, I might have an overload, so that would be one. And then two, I would say that we also heard from some of our faculty who were in the newer range, so maybe $50,000, and they're saying, I would prefer not to do an overload because I can substitute and make more money than I can as an overload, right? And so we're trying to build a model that provides at least an opportunity for all to have a reasonably similar compensation, I guess.
So educate me on overloads. Are overloads assigned or are they voluntary?
They're currently voluntary. Technically, we can assign them at any time. So we have the ability to assign teachers to any assignment during the school day. But at this current juncture, we ask for volunteers first. We have to make sure they're certified. Then we ask for volunteers, and we never have any trouble finding volunteers, because quite honestly, the amount that they get paid, and even at $65,000 is right around $8,000 and change. for an overload, that's more than they could make as a varsity coach typically. So we don't have usually we don't have trouble finding volunteers for this. And sometimes we're in the situation where we have to find someone to teach that section because we had additional kids sign up and they're helping us out for that situation.
2 questions. Is it for a full year always?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It can be for a semester. Sometimes it's a quarter.
Okay.
And it can be all year as well.
Okay.
The formatting didn't work out well on here, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to give you a sense of what that looks like. So Craig currently has 994 sections. You wouldn't see that based on the format. They actually have 12 overloads right now. So we're talking about 1.5% of the total sections, whereas Craig has 906 current total sections, and they're at 21 overloads. And those happen based on staff leaving, the different sections of kids signing up for those different things. So we're talking about 2% or so, and again, we don't typically have too much issue with finding those wanting to teach. I did meet with Commissioner Myers after PPC. She had a few more questions, so I did pull those numbers for her. And there was one thing that she brought up that she asked us to look into, and I said, I talked to Superintendent Holzman, was the process by which the principals go about choosing who teaches those overloads. Many times we're limited by certification and honestly time. If they have a full schedule and they're doing supervision and other things, we have to look at that as well, but that is something that we would look into.
Did you run the numbers on the financial impact of going to this average versus their actual percentage on salary?
I have a short answer, and it's no. So I can tell you we spend approximately $205,000 currently on overloads. That's what's budgeted this year. We didn't do the math knowing it would just essentially be less. And sometimes we have to run the overload because we have an open position, right? So overloads aren't necessarily just handed out like candy.
No.
Sorry, so what would be less? The 205 would be less than going to the average, or?
No, we currently spend 205
Right.
based upon the existing model.
Right.
So,
Yep.
and I'm sure you've already surmised, right? It's less. I just didn't run those numbers because it
This, going to this
fluctuates year
average
to
would be
year.
less?
The average would be less.
Going to the average salary would be less, okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, what is the best practice in the state for overloads? Is this
Yeah.
what other school districts are doing?
This is actually much more generous than other school districts. I check with the Dade County group that I work with on a regular basis, and I ask them for all their overload language. We're the most generous group. I can forward you the emails, or if you'd like to meet, we can talk about that, but we're by far the most generous when it comes to overload payment. Many of them say it's $300, some have 4%. It's not near what we pay, frankly.
Is the best practice though within those districts that they all get paid the same?
All of that have that in the handbook, yeah, they all had the same rate.
Right, so it's not like we're actually I don't
We're-
wanna say
we're-
the odd, we're
Frankly,
odd.
yes, and honestly, we're adding this to our handbook because it's been a practice and not something that's been in writing. So we're adding this to make sure that it stays in there and we have a process
Okay.
to go by.
All right, thank you.
I heard you, excuse me, I heard you say you don't ever have really a problem filling the overloads, but following Commissioner Murray's thinking, do you perceive that with this type of a system, which I think is a good system, that some of your upper level people will say, I'm not gonna do that, because I'm making less?
So the amount we're talking about, if we say an 80 average, and that's high-end, $80,000, okay? That's a $10,000 payment for the overload. At 65,000, that's roughly $8,000 or 8,500-ish. So we're talking about $1,000 or $1,200, $1,500, and again, I'm using general numbers, reduction, but that's still more than any varsity coach makes. So we typically don't have too much difficulty. Yes, it is a little bit less. The other piece that we should note is that if you choose to sub in our district, just as a regular teacher, and you get asked to sub during your prep, that's $30. and you hit a certain threshold as to which then you surpass the overload pay. So we wanted to make sure it was competitive with ourselves in terms of if you're subbing every day, we want to make sure that we are competitive with ourselves and allow for an incentive to overload.
All right, so, do we have a motion to pass 4.5? Right. John and Jim again. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 6-1.
Question with that, Kevin, well, I don't want to pick on you, but do you have a good idea of something else that we could do to make it more equitable?
So the question is, sorry, you didn't have your microphone, so I'll just repeat, or you wanna go ahead?
I'm sorry, no, not to put you behind the 8 ball, Kevin, but I wonder if you had a better suggestion or something of something we could do towards it, cause I'd like to hear that if you did.
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate now, but we could always bring it up again at
Okay,
policy committee and.
thank you.
All right, 5.1.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.1, presentation of the district strategic planning workshop findings. Mark Holzman and Lori Mueller.
All right. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that I got a pizza cutter at the, whatever, the Business Expo. And I know some kids got brewer tickets and like, athletic club member. I got a pizza cutter. I need to hang around with a deck of kids, I think is that's what I learned real quickly.
Superintendent joke?
I did not. I gotta say, I can't use that a lot. I have to save that.
I used it and they loved it.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be here. We've been talking for a long time now, over 6 months, about a strategic plan, and we have some things that we'd like to share with you tonight in our strategic plan group. What I would like to say is, standing next to me is Dr. Lori Miller, who has worked with us since probably the end of July in this conversation about strategic plans. And once we had really identified our first meetings that we were going to have, the first of 4 meetings, Lori and I probably had a conversation every day, every week moving forward. And so I'm so grateful for the work that Lori and the Donovan Group has done to get us to the space that we're at. What we're presenting to you is really a combination of 65 or so people's thoughts about where we want to go, and so that's always a little bit of a challenge as we kind of work through that process. But we're proud of the work that we've done, and I would also acknowledge that we're still, on your paper, you have draft. There's still a couple tweaks and maybe some spots and a spot that we might move, but we're really looking for the foundation, as we say, the bones are in place, and we'd really like to kind of keep that process moving forward. So just to kind of give you an idea, again, our purpose tonight is to make sure that you understand the process we use for the strategic plan, give you an idea about our mission, vision, and core values, and kind of walk through how we've talked about those pillars, and then provide some next steps and an opportunity for questions as you move forward. So I think when we talked back in maybe August a little bit about strategic planning, we wanted to make sure that we used a all-encompassing process to guide what's next for the School District of Janesville. And we have an exciting time in front of us where we're thinking about lots of plans, whether they're our strategic plan, and we're thinking about what we need to do in our facility studies. And this is going to help guide the decision-making process as we look about what matters most. And we talk a little bit about this coherence of 3 goals and making sure we're focusing on. So you're going to hear some common themes that we've talked about over this process. So the first thing that we did in this strategic plan is we talked a little bit about the state of the district. So again, we had a couple, Commissioner Paul and Commissioner Damerhausen were with us in this process. And they sat at one of, I don't remember, 17 or 19 tables full of people. And we talked a little bit about who we are as a school district of Janesville. And what do we value and what are some of our strengths and so what are some of our areas of growth. We really dug deep into getting some student feedback and really helped determine our priorities. And we had lots of them to begin with. And we really had to funnel those priorities down into some strategic focus areas. And we're excited to really talk a little bit about what that looked like. Here's a really good example of what it looked like. And I know sometimes commissioners stopped by and took a peek. But I know that there's just two of us here presenting tonight. But this is the work of these 65 folks who really came back Monday night after Monday night after Monday night and really stayed with the work. And you see some quotes that we had from people when we did exit slips, really talking about how'd you feel about what do we have to change, what do you want to do? And we had people who would apologize when they had to miss. Hey, I've got an extra something, I'm sorry I can't miss, but I'll be there on the next time. And really, we're just grateful that people would come. And it really was a great idea. When I shared with the board the idea, I wasn't sure if we'd get, 30 people, 25 people, and we really had to back some off because our group was so large that we want to make sure we said yes to as many people as possible, but you get 100 people in that room and it'd be difficult. So again, this is some language that we had from all of those folks. We wanted to, and again, I think we had some conversations about how we might do this, but we heard real strongly from our group after the first night, we want to hear from our students. So Lori and I kind of sat and brainstormed about what would that look like. And so we took a tour of all three of our middle schools and our high schools and had student focus groups and represent some of our strengths and areas of growth. And it was really, really interesting when we had opportunities to hear from kids from all levels on what they had. And so we incorporated that within our plan. We talked a little bit about our strengths, and you can see there focused what our students said were our strengths and what our students said that we need to continue to work on. And so you'll see some of those strengths when you look at our 4 pillars and what we're looking at within those. And again, our kids gave really great feedback about things that they valued and the things that they felt we needed to work on as a district. And so we're going to continue to look at that as we move forward. So this is the themes that we've got specifically from our secondary students. And so we had an opportunity to sit down and talk a little bit about what that looks like. And so when you talk about opportunities, professional development for our staff, improving our student practices with behavior and student-teacher relationships. They wanted more academic supports. We heard about mental health and recognition, right? And so those were some of the areas that are opportunities that our students said. We then came back and shared that information, I think on night 2 maybe with our team, and they said, hey, what about the elementary kids? We should probably figure out what we're going to do with the elementary. So we went back again and brainstormed and said, well, what would this look like and how might we go about doing that? And what we ended up doing was we surveyed elementary schools, and our first 3 in the alphabet had 3rd grade, and our second 4 in the 4, I guess it would be, for 12, 4 in the alphabet had 4th grade, and the second 4 had 5th grade. And we sent out a survey for them so that they could give us some feedback, specifically what they thought from the elementary 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade level. And when you think about the strengths and opportunities, we talked about that. They love the friendship, and they're obviously number 1 is their teacher relationship. They love learning. They talked about math and physical education. Now again, when they talk about opportunities, additional research time, right? Everybody wants more recess, but they also talked about equipment. And it was interesting, they talked a little bit about, in the elementary, this lunch choice opportunity, and the middle schools couldn't believe how great it was that they had lunch choice, right? It's just a different perspective, because in elementary school, you get 2 choices, right? It's, hamburger or chicken patty, and at the middle school, you get multiple choices, so by the time they get to high school, they're like, well, we don't get any choices for lunch. Well, remember what you got, chicken patty or hamburger, and they switched those, but again, that was just the language we saw.
And again, when we talk a little bit about what they wanted, we saw some student behavior in the elementary and the middle school and high school. We talked about more break time. They talked about facilities. They wanted better facilities throughout our system. They talked about our technology and learning tools. Our kids wanted to move more. They wanted flexible learning spaces. This is the feedback we're getting from third, fourth, and fifth graders, which really, as we recall some of the other things we talked about at our facility study, they're feeling that within our buildings. So we were able to get all of those areas specifically from our elementary, middle school, and high school and incorporated that into our mission statement. And so I'm going to turn it over here for a minute for Lori to kind of walk us through the next section.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So with all that assessment of where we at as a district, we were able to bring all that information back to the overall planning group. And one of the first things we did was start to talk about mission and vision. And so to make sure everybody understood the difference between the two, because often they're confused, the best way to remember it is, thank you. The best way to remember it is that your mission is your why. Why are we existing today? What's our purpose? And the vision is where we're headed, right? So some of the things that we did to come up with the mission statement is we reviewed sample statements from across the country. And we talked about what we liked, what we didn't like. We also made a list of what we felt makes a great mission statement. What are some attributes of a great mission statement? And ultimately, we answered these three questions. What do we do? Whom do we serve? And how do we serve them? And from that, this sounds so easy, like boom, here's our mission statement. It was many meetings and discussion, and it really up until our very last meeting did we land on this mission statement. And what's beautiful about this mission statement is it allows us to look at the verbs here, and it creates a nice tagline: inspire, empower, achieve. And that was probably one of the best feel-goods that came out of our discussion with the group. Everybody loved that. Then we moved into the vision. And again, we looked at sample vision statements, talked about what we liked, what we didn't like, and we did this activity called the Wi-Fi activity. Wouldn't it be fantastic if, in 1 year, the School District of Janesville, and we fill in the blank? Wouldn't it be fantastic if in 3 years and in 5 years? You can see how being able to articulate where we want to be helps us set that vision. And from there, we identified themes, and some key things came from that. One was about student performance. One was about retaining and attracting the very best and investing in our staff. And so you can see that came through in the overall vision statement. And we really liked this idea of educational excellence that the School District of Janesville needs to be for the state of Wisconsin, for the region, perhaps larger, a vision of educational excellence, that we are one of the top performers. And it really matches what you currently have for your brand and your logo. So it was interesting that it came out that way. Then we asked our group to talk about what do we believe our strong values are for each of our graduates. Those students that go through our system, we want them to leave with strong skills, and this is what we value for our students, that they can strongly communicate, that they're great critical thinkers, they're able to be curious about wanting to learn new things, show empathy for others, that they're resilient, which is a great trait to have at this point in our society, and have strong work ethic. From there, we define these as a group, and that's included in our strategic plan materials moving forward. So then I think, we jumped pretty quick. So there, we decided, okay, what are our priority areas? And the priority areas become the directions that we focus a lot of our energy around. So when we talk about the strategic plan being the guide and a post for us to make decisions moving forward, where are those priority areas that your community, your school community feels is really important? And we did this by talking about the strengths. We went through a whole activity of identifying strengths, areas for growth, opportunities, and threats. We did that, as you saw, with the students. And we brought all that together, synthesized it, and then we asked your group okay, from all of this work, what are our priorities? And so I'm going to kind of I'm going to pull back the curtain, right, to kind of show how this work came together. What you see here in the grid, if you could just ignore the I don't know what you call that, like the maroon or mauve color. If you just look at the grid below, underneath optimal student outcomes, you see the very first thing is social and behavioral challenges. That is listed in chronological order or order of importance. Like that had the most priority from the group. Okay, so what I did is I took all of their priorities, and based on what they said was most important, I just grouped them into these 4 themes. Okay, so they are saying to us that social and behavioral challenges is something that we really need to focus on. They're telling us underneath growing talented and invested educators that we need to focus on talent acquisition and retention. That was number 1. Community partnerships and collaboration was number 1 under family and community partnerships, and facilities was number 1 underneath what we are now calling resources and facilities. So that allows you to kind of decipher this. And so we brought this back to the whole group and said, here's where we're landing. And from there, we identified 4 priority areas or directions that we're going to focus our decision-making on and around. So the first one is student academic excellence. And you'll see here that what we've done is we tried to define, based on the feedback from our group, we asked them to give us ideas for goals moving forward underneath each of these areas. So you'll see that we always we start with our students will achieve, and then you can read the rest, right? Academic excellence through the district's commitment. Then we say we will, so I want to point out, I guess, is the structure of these. So we're saying our students will ... because we will ... Okay, so you can see that the language we have here comes from the feedback that we got from the larger group. However, tonight when we talk to you about your support for the plan, just know that there's still some tweaking around the language underneath each of these. Okay, all right. Let's go back one. So the second one is staff excellence. And here we say our students will benefit from instruction services because they're getting that from an outstanding, skilled, and motivated staff. And how we're going to guarantee that is we're going to employ strategies to attract the very best for our students. And you're going to see the investment in professional growth. The third one was family and community partnerships. And again, the focus on our students, they're going to gain valuable opportunities, develop meaningful relationships through those partnerships. And how we're going to do that is we're going to actively engage the families and community through partnerships that enhance our curriculum, offer student experiences, strengthen connections across our district, across our buildings. We heard that was a need. And by promoting the stories of success from our schools. We heard that was a strong need. And then the last area is resources and facilities. And we struggled with this one, to name this, because I think we really want the emphasis here to be on not rethinking because we haven't been doing a good job, but really optimizing the use of resources that we have. And sometimes we need to be creative or think differently about how we use resources and how we can make sure that we're maximizing the spaces for our students to learn. And you'll note that when you look at these 4 priority areas and the language underneath each, that there's a lot of overlap or they connect with each other in a really natural way. So that's going to make the work of setting goals a lot easier for your team. So with that, we're ready to unveil a really high level of what the strategic plan looks like.
Wow. So I think at your table you have what we would call a potential poster that has the mission and then our strategic plan core values along with those stake points. And again, when you think about what we're asking you to kind of work through, so we have a mission statement that talks about we believe, and then that we believe really our tagline is inspire, empower, and achieve. That's where we're really focusing. And as I think about student excellence, staff excellence, family and community partnerships, and resources and facilities, I think about the work that we've been doing over the last year and a half, really talking about our 3 goals for academics, trying to work on student excellence, the idea that we have to pay people and make sure that our school districts is a great place to work, learn, and play. We want people to be here and figure out how we do that. We want to continue to train people and make sure that's happening. We heard from partnerships and what we're doing and how we might be able to expand the partnerships with our business community and be able to communicate better with our parents and stakeholders here. So that goes under that family. And then obviously we're embarking on lots of conversations about our facilities and resources. So it's not surprising that we landed on this area, right? I mean, you think about where we start and say, one of my conversations early was we want to be able to identify that the School District of Janesville is a great place to learn, a great place to work, and a great schools for our community. And this kind of encompasses where we are with that. So the next steps really is what I talked to you as a board. We're gonna there's still a few tweaks when I say that, that's why you have draft on there, and maybe we move this or the sentence changes, we put apostrophe, but the core idea about the vision and the student excellence, staff excellence, family partnerships, and our strategic plan core values is what we would call the bones. Like, that's the structure, and that's what we want to continue. But what we're really going to move forward is kind of give you some examples too. But we want the board to be able to help us say, yes, move forward and operate the plan. Now, what does it look like? And so then we'll continue to be able to create some operational pieces moving forward. And again, we'll give you progress reports. I want our strategic plan to be something that we're regularly looking back on at least 2 times per year. And I'm giving you feedback on what we're doing on our strategic plan, how this fits into it. And it also, hopefully, in difficult decisions, helps guide the decision that we make. Because one of the things that we continue to know, even narrowing down the gap on the strategic plan, is there's a lot. The School District of Janesville provides a lot. We heard from 2 eloquent high school kids who talked about the gamut of stuff we're doing at 2 buildings. There's a lot. And we have to pay attention to a lot, but we really have to measure a few. Like, we can't get off on the edges over here a lot and over here. We really need to focus on what's best for kids, and I hope that this helps us develop that model.
All right, and I'm just gonna go back really quick too. This is beautiful. I hope you feel the same. I think this is a beautiful end result, but this isn't where the hard work lies, right? We are just beginning this process now. Once you have your strategic plan kind of identified and you have those bones set, as Mark said, the real work comes with operationalizing that plan. And sometimes that's really hard for people to wrap their heads around, like, well, what does that look like? And so you're seeing that, again, our team is going to help you with rolling this all out with communications. But the operation comes with your team here and their day-to-day, what they see going on in your schools, and working in collaboration with you and the staff to really make sure that we make progress with where our community is saying this is where we think our priorities lie. And so, like Mark said, you'll get those progress reports. So Mark asked me, hey, this might be tough, right, for our board to understand. What does this look like in action? So we just thought we'd do one example for you to see how this comes to fruition. So let's just say hypothetically, under student academic excellence, right, that's one of our priority areas. What we heard as a focus from our group is we need to address chronic absenteeism, or we need to focus on attendance in the district. And so if that's our focus, we are relying on this team here to develop a goal that's measurable to make sure that we're making progress towards that focus. Ultimately points our arrow towards improving student academic excellence. So hypothetically, a goal could be we're going to decrease student chronic absenteeism by 5% within the next school year. One of the tactics or strategies to do that, that's up for the team to decide what works, using what we know as best practice, and then also coming up with what's the indicator of success. Or some school districts like to use key performance indicator, or KPI. Ultimately, what's the measure that tells us that we're making good progress, that we're going to make that focus come to reality, or we need to adjust. And that's where the monitoring comes into play. So we want to kind of give you a sense of what does it mean when we say operationalize the plan? This is what we mean. This is the hard work that comes next. And then this is done on an annual basis. As you make progress, you're going to learn that you have to focus or double down on other areas because you're making great progress in some areas, but you're not making enough progress in other. And that's part of the work of this group moving forward. So what is your role again? I thought it would be important to come back to this. We shared this slide with you back in August that we wanted to make a commitment to this process. We wanted to make sure that we had good voice represented across your entire school community. We asked for your participation at planning meetings. We wanted you to be a critical listener and to, ask questions, seek understanding. Ultimately, we'd love for you to approve the plan. And again, as Mark is saying, we're asking you tonight to consider the approval of the mission, the vision, the core values, and the priority areas. From there, we enact the plan, and it serves as a guidepost for decision-making. So when we say guidepost for decision-making, we thought we'd just kind of, again, illustrate this. For example, are we currently focused on strategies right now? If you think about all the things you've talked about as a board, are we currently focused on the things that we've identified as our priorities? So this is a tool to kind of guide that work. Like, you don't want to, we get pulled, right? As boards, you get pulled into different directions. Thank you for that face, yes. And so this is an opportunity for you to use this tool to kind of refocus and make sure that your efforts are going to give you the biggest impact for improvement. You might have to say, are there some things that we're currently doing that we just need to let go? And when new ideas, actions, or solutions come forward, you can use the plan to decide if you want to take those on. So let's consider a scenario, and I'm just going to preface this by saying this is a made-up scenario. It's not something you're all dealing with. I tried to be, not to trigger anybody with anything, but this happens. I've seen this in my experience as a superintendent. A group of elementary teachers come to you, and they have a proposal to incorporate a series of field trips to Wisconsin points of interest throughout the school year. Super cool, right? They're planning a trip a month, so we're looking at 8 to 9 trips. They feel that this is an activity that will support their social studies curriculum, so it's supporting the curriculum. And they're seeking full funding from you all for transportation and entry to all of these sites, right? And not only that, but the teachers have garnered a lot of support from families. Families love this idea, and they're coming to you as well, pushing on you, right? So where this scenario takes us, what priority area does this request fall under in our plan? And I would think, we have to look under student academic excellence, right? Does this request support the focus of our priority area? And so, my background's curriculum instruction. So, a thing that I would struggle with is that's a lot of time out of the classroom, right? And our focus is on reading and math. And I know that that's part of social studies curriculum, and student experience is really important, but maybe that's too much student experience outside of the classroom. Funding, right? Like, is that where you want to leverage most of your funds, or do you want to, is that funding needed someplace else? This is the idea, right? You can come to these conversations with this tool in hand. I did have a funding one, but we're gonna be gentle and not do that one. But if you want to, I have it in the slide deck. So here's next steps.
Yes, so, thank you. We definitely have, in your packet, you have all this information. We're really looking for a motion to approve the proposed. Then we have a plan to communicate first. The communications would be with the 65 people whom helped garner this information, saying the board said yes or gave us some feedback on that. And then we'll work on the operation. How do we communicate this? We likely are going to share this internally with all of our staff, all of our building principals. We'll have posters and things that we can do. We'll put it out on social media. But we want to then provide opportunities to have progress updates as well along the way. So again, we're not asking you to approve any of the goals related to the plans yet. We're just asking you to create the plan. And I know that as I worked, just want you to know that the director team and I have worked probably every week since January to kind of funnel this. And one of the things that we've also talked about was making sure that we don't have 15 plans again. When we look behind us, we have the Janesville Promises sign. And one of the things that really hindered the continuance of that was we just were paying attention to way too many things. And so we weren't measuring it regularly. And so we want to still make sure that we're using that coherence and being relentless on a few things. I'm confident we're going to continue to come back with recommendations in math, reading, and student attendance. But there will be some other things that we might want to pay attention to, and that's where we'll get some feedback from you all. So I will pause there and take questions, comments, wondering.
Yeah, I sat through the strategic planning and worked on it, and I was amazed at the number of people that offered so much and gave me a lot of insight personally, and I think the group as a whole. But one of the first things we did was to talk about facilities and the changes in them. And I look back, and I've really thought on this for 5 months now, and that of how education has developed. And we started with the individual, what would you say, the tutor type of thing for those that had access and the money to do it. Then we came up with this great idea of public education where they could do it, and they started, of course, in many areas. You think of the Wild West and that, with single class, one-room classrooms. And then we got where we were more specialized and went through the various things. And then today, we're also looking at where we started, one-room classrooms, but in a bigger way and a better shape. And as we go through this, I'd like to share that others look at those things and how the school facilities themselves, as we do changes and maintenance and simple things, we need to look at, can we get to the point of where today's education would have better ways of attaining what they need to attain? So I just wanted to share that because it's really stuck with me. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the district mission, vision, and core values.
Michelle, can I say something? I think this looks really great, and I think speaks to the work of that everyone's put in. I'm so appreciative to all the community members and staff members that showed up. It was a pleasure for me to be a part of this process from start to finish. I was on part of the committee for when we were searching for your organization to join us. I, of course, because of my involvement, have really critically looked at all of this, and I love it. I don't like saying but, and
It's important.
kills me a little bit. I don't know about the language and the vision, and I want to explain my thought process. I know that it's looking to the future, but when I see we believe in a future and committing to, I worry that it points or paints a picture that we're not already doing those things. And that's how it reads to me. And I want to make sure that our language is demonstrating that we're doing these things and we're planning to continue to do them. And I don't know that it reads that way. And so I'm not sure about this being everything else. I think is exactly how I would envision it. I think it's beautiful. And there's a little bit in the language of the last sentence, we will unlock every student's potential through strong community relationships and committing to staff excellence. It might just be the way that like my vernacular is. I feel like there should be another verb in there, and we remain committed, or we are remaining committed, that shows that it is a progression instead of something we just hope to get to.
Michelle's taking notes for us. She's my associates.
So that's what I read with this. I think the sentiment is right on. It's just I want to make sure that we're not telling people that we hope this is the future we have.
Right.
Because we have been.
Yeah.
We are doing so much. I want our community to feel that, and that not only are we doing this, but we are remaining committed to this well into the future. So that's where I am.
That sounds good. If I may respond to that, thank you for that. I respect that feedback. And I've seen that kind of sentiment as I've worked with other districts across the country when they set that vision and also with their mission. But the vision is always tricky, right? Because And that's why we always have to start with the definition between the two. Like, our mission is what we're doing right now. The vision is what we see success look like. And it's hard to say we're not saying that, like, but I can see that that's what people might take away is, oh, we're not doing that yet. And so one of the things that we've done to kind of, mitigate that, if you will, is when we put together the whole plan and, we have a detailed brochure and all that, we lay that out. Like, we are currently doing these things. We want to stay committed to these things, and if our commitment is successful, we will realize this as our vision. So that's just something to think about as, to mitigate that concern, yeah. But you're not alone on that, we've had that feedback.
Well, you said these are just drafts, correct? At this point, the mission and the vision of excellence?
Yes, nothing has
statements.
been approved
So
yet, so
if, Liz, if the verbiage were, we believe in the future where student engagement and attendance insert continue to be valued, would you feel better?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
It's totally fine. Takes a village. Really.
Yeah,
It's
so
everybody's plan.
I do like the continuation that I think that's what I'm caught on. And there's and again at the last part, I feel that it might just be the way that I communicate. I am a language person. I am not always succinct. So, yeah, I feel that, John. And again, I just want to state this is not it's not just by me. There's a lot of people on this board. But
Right. I think what I hear you saying is that you agree with the structure, and there's a couple verbs in there that might need, and when we're asking for approval, there will probably be within that poster a few slight changes, and so, again, we're not ready to send this out in publication yet.
Right.
And so if you're okay, what I would prefer to do is have us kind of work on that adjustment and then just send it another piece back out to the board, knowing that the structure is the same, right? That we're really looking for, yep, you got the right pieces in place here. We just need to tweak that a little bit before we send it out to our staff and our community for publication.
yeah, I think that sounds fabulous. And I really want to make sure that the people who were a part of the committee, and I know you mentioned something, but I just want to. I was on and I turned it off, sorry. I want to make sure that the people who participated get like a preliminary rollout, because I feel like they deserve to see, hey, this is what your work has done. I would hate for their first time to see it just like with everyone else.
I have an email prepared.
Okay.
That will go out tomorrow with the draft, but I wanted to make sure the board gave us some at least direction and approval before I sent that back out.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I think this all sounds really good. I appreciate it. It's been a
thank you.
pleasure, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and you kind of brought it up a little bit to me too. These are goals. These are somewhat of a railroad track, a way to travel. But it's open-ended. It never ends. And it can be tweaked all the way along and that. Nothing's fixed about it. It's just goals and a way to go and adjust when necessary, which will be constant.
Yeah, it will be.
I want to thank everybody for working on this too, and especially Liz and Carl. Thank you for, I know it's a lot of time and that everybody put in. So the committee will see a proof that's revised, right? I have a couple of edits that I would suggest. I can just get them to you. Just more like formatting is all. Okay, so then talk me through the process of the goals. So is this whole group of 65 getting back together to do the goals? No.
That's a great question, So that group of 65, I think is important for the board to see as kind of an advisory role.
Right.
Right, they came together and they did the heavy lift of the work to come forward and bring you essentially a recommendation.
Right.
So with your approval, once the plan is finalized, then the goal setting piece works with your internal team here. But then the external piece of that is sharing it back out with board, your community, so everybody visually, it's articulated that this is where we're headed. But that lies with the work of I keep going over here because it's really, I'm looking at Allison,
Director
right?
team?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like it's really the work of this team because that's what you've hired them for, right? Like they're your leaders around each of these different areas. And so they will take the guide of the decision-making and all the plan, and they'll write out the goals and they'll bring them to you. And that's how you'll progress forward. But no, we won't have 65 people come.
Got it.
Yeah.
And what's the timeline on the goals?
So my perspective on the goals, but again, I look over here because I'm not the lead of the district, but my perspective on the goals is that they set goals on an annual basis. So you can look out, like usually a strategic plan will guide your work for 3 to 5 years. And so they want to look out 3 years. Where do we want to be? Like if we use the example of attendance as one, where do we want to be with attendance 3 years out? And then they chunk it back, right? So in year 1, we want to make this much progress with attendance. In year 2, we want to make this much progress so that we can reach that in year 3. And so each year they set goals. And just as you were saying, you might have to pivot. It depends on what's happening. For example, a lot of people pivoted with their strategic plans when the pandemic happened, right? So you'll have to keep progress monitoring and making sure that if you're not making enough progress like you want, why is that? What's the root cause of that? And you may have to pivot a goal and double down on some strategies that you need to put in place.
So I guess I meant the timeline on when we would see a draft of the goals.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good question. I would anticipate that we'll bring goals forward that would be something that we'd institute for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
Like, we'll continue with our current reading, math, and attendance goals. We'll probably incorporate those into the next. So, let's say we finalize this within the next month or so. Then we'll start working on trying to fill in the gaps on, how are we going to measure and what does that look like? And we'll definitely get feedback from the board about, here's where we're thinking about how we're going to measure and
Okay, so
fill
board
in
will
the
be
blank.
involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Because I guess I'm thinking then down the road, this would, Mark, I think this is your metrics. Do you know what I mean? And then I think that SEC committee, or the special request, like it feeds, those are now the buckets that people have to fill those out in for if they have a special request. The dashboard would be updated on the website. It's gonna have to, I want it consistent, in everything, because then to your point, every decision we make, is feeding up to that, so, but knowing that it's for next school year, we have time to catch all the spots that have old language or something like that. Okay.
And we're not going anywhere. We're here to support the team.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here, team. Not gonna leave you with the plan and say good luck, right? So, yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion made by Kevin, seconded by Jim. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. Very grateful for your work. Yep. Thank you.
All right, done.
All right.
I gotta switch hats here.
Yes, 5.2, update on long-range facilities plan. Commissioner, Superintendent Holzman.
Switch frame of thought here.
Okay, thank you again for your time tonight. I wanted to provide the board with just an update since the last time we met. We were in this room listening to an update from J.P. Cullen on some of the costs associated with our our capital improvement plan. And so we continue to really take a look at this significant amount of data that we have when we're thinking about the information that all of us have. If you're on the facilities committee, you have at least 3 of these binders, right, that have hundreds of pages of information. And so our job now is really to start to narrow that information and try to work through what does the process look like for narrowing down 2.2 million square feet, 19 buildings and 21 facilities. And we know that the building condition and capital maintenance needs alone are in excess of 550 million is identified on that, but that does not include those potential improvements to learning environments, and that's one of the things that we also have to consider if we do want to provide this excellence. We probably have to consider a little bit on how does this work. So what I want to let you know is that last week, some directors and myself, along with the J.P. Cullen team, the EUA team, and the Point of Beginnings, had a brainstorming session for an extended afternoon, really kind of looking at how we're focusing, what we're focusing on, and what the next steps might be for us to potentially prioritize our needs. And one of the things that we looked at that was interesting and will be likely timely for the board to potentially consider was the study that was done on our facilities and the space available. So you remember about a year ago, we received a plan and reviewed on what kind of space we had within our facilities. And one of the things that we talked about was that facility space, or from, help me out, Dan, the Roffer study, really looked at on a basis of a plan of 32-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio in our buildings. And when we talked about, well, that's really not what we have. And so it really showed a little bit more space availability. And so we thought, you know what, it might be probably appropriate for us to take a look at what our current model might look like as opposed to 32-to-1. And then bring that to the board for some conversation and consideration. So our goal at the next board meeting is to give you a little bit of extended time to work through some of the features that we're considering as we get community feedback. And the community feedback is scheduled for the 27th, the 28th, and March 5th. 27th and 28th are at 6 o'clock, and March 5th, 27th and March 5th are at 6 o'clock, and the 28th is at 1 o'clock here in the ESC. The 27th, I think we start at Parker, and then we go to Marshall. What our goal is as we move forward is try to synthesize as much information as we can to try to give you some feedback and support. This is going to be a long process, and we need to get some community ideas about, you know, where we are and what does some of our public think about where we should spend some of our priority time and resources in order to engage this conversation. The other thing that I think is really important for us to consider really also comes to the timing of how much time we have to narrow this information. So I would say that it is likely really important for us, and I hope the board is strongly considering an operational referendum question in this upcoming November election. That conversation really, as Dan would talk about, is the oxygen to the School District of Janesville. Like, that's something that we really need to continue in order for us to provide just the services that we're providing today. Without that, we're not going to be able to provide the services. In addition to that, the board was presented with a $578 million needs over the next 10, 12, 15 years, of which I think we acknowledge that we're not able to do all at one time. Like, that's just going to be too much, and so we're going to have to do it in some stages. And so the question really is, how much time do we have to really orchestrate what stage, the first stage potentially would look like, and how do we go about doing that? Because we really want to be able to do this in a timely communication factor. And so as we start to narrow those priorities, what we'll do is give you the feedback of what we hear from the community. So we're going to hear from the community in 3 different sessions. We then are going to plan on sending some feedback out to our community in a survey. And that hopefully survey will come back sometime in May so that we can give the board that information in June before school's out. So maybe at that time the board would consider a recommendation. Maybe not. I don't know that we need to necessarily land on a question necessarily, but we're saying, yes, this is the direction we're going and this is what we're going to go, so that we can really focus on the communication tools over the course of the summer and the beginning of the next school year. So we did have a great opportunity to really take a peek at what some of those numbers mean and where we are. But again, when we look at this engaging our community, I think they'll give us some feedback. And there's some digital tools that we'll use at those resource centers. And we want to introduce those to you on, is that the 27th? 28th. And so what we're going to ask you to do is go through the same kind of activities as that we're going to put our public through in a narrow piece, because you already know about the priorities that we have. And our public maybe have some general information, so we're going to have to share the general information and then provide them with some feedback opportunities for priorities. We'll use the priorities that we have from you and then from the board, and we'll give that back to you, and you say, you know what, that's a good idea, or I don't know if that's really what we want to pay attention to. And then we're hoping that we'll get some direction. We'll make some recommendations. We'll hear what you have to say so that we can start to narrow what that looks like and ask some questions, because we really have to narrow the scope even to ask a survey question, because right now we can't just say, well, what do you think about, should we do this or that? We're not even at that stage yet. When we get to that stage, then we'll be able to definitely have some conversations about what our priorities are, and then from there identify what the cost associated with those priorities would be. So again, I want to reiterate the 3 public sessions which are next. Wednesday, February 28th, 6 to 8, that's at Marshall Middle School. I think I flip-flopped those. Thursday here at the ESC from 1 to 3, and Tuesday, March 5th at Parker High School from 6 till 8. So I'll make sure I communicate that out. You're always welcome to attend those. We're going to advertise to our families, our staff, and our communities. I'm hopeful we'll get a good conversation and be able to work with our community and get feedback on, first of all, inform them on where we're at, get feedback, and then we'll bring that to you. But we do want you to go through some similar activities on the 27th so that you have an idea of what we're going to be doing at those meetings, and then we can get some feedback ahead of that from you. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions or comments specifically, if I get rid of that, about the next steps for our strategic plan. Awesome. Anything I missed, folks? Looking at my team here.
Thank you. 5.3, update on district's 2024-2025 budget assumptions, Mr. McCray.
Thank you, President Hayworth and Commissioners. Included in your board packet is a memo outlining the 24-25 budget assumptions. They really fall into 4 categories: financial management, revenue, expenses, and staffing. And of course, Mr. Garner shared with you some of the staffing assumptions back before the first of the year. Okay, sorry, that was sometime? No. No, it's okay. So quickly we'll go through these, right? There are 23. We won't touch on every one, but some themes. Keep in mind, right, we will be in year 2 of a biennial state budget, right? So we know some things, right? So next year, when we move into the 25-26 budget, it will be a little bit up in the air at this time because the state will be going through its process, right? So if we take quickly at revenue, okay, keep in mind we will have a $0 increase in what we call per student categorical aid. There will be an increase in the overall state pool of available equalization aid. Please keep in mind, equalization aid is not additional money to the district or any district in the state. It's really an offset of a district's levy in terms of property tax relief. We continue to anticipate categorical aid at approximately 33% reimbursement, meaning the remaining balance is a transfer from Fund 10 to 27. When we look at our revenue limit authority, we will see an increase of approximately $325 based upon an approximate membership number, which you see listed there, which is 9108. That's approximately going to yield $2.9 million in additional revenue for the district. That is our only, if you will, revenue increase that we can anticipate. right? As we continue to look forward, right, in terms of our FTE for summer school, the independent charter school is actually a relatively new value. I believe this will be year 4. We continue to see that number go up. That is something that we levy for because we receive an equalization aid impact hit on that, right? So I'm getting a little granular, right? These will be things that you'll continue to see throughout the budget development process, right? And then we will be, most importantly, in year 4 of a 4-year non-recurring operating referendum. Superintendent Holtzman referenced the fact, you know, that is essentially oxygen in the room for us. The board should consider placing a question on the ballot for November, and we'll bring information to you to solidify perhaps exactly what that number is and the recommendations behind that number. Open enrollment, as you know, is very fluid. We really and traditionally have taken a look at where we are in September. Right, we will have a net value, if you will, come June. There's an open enrollment reconciliation for us, right? So you'll see that number change, right? We have seen a decrease in our open enrollment revenue, right? So our net profit, if you will, relative to open enrollment is no longer what it used to be. So that's something for us to be very conscientious about in terms of our revenue coming in, our expenses going out, and the difference between those two. We anticipate Fund 10 and 27 grant revenues to remain the same. That would be your Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV types, and any other types of mental health grants and what have you available from the state of Wisconsin and the U.S. government. Expenses. We do a bit of a cast forward model. We know, and this was in January 9th, the number has settled. I believe the allowable base wage increase calculation is 4.13%, right? So we will net that out. Those on the negotiating team will see that value coming forward in the coming weeks and early months. We anticipate, and it's really somewhat anyone's guess, but typically we roll with a 10% increase in our health insurance. We may see that trending slightly higher, which provides additional budgetary pressure on all the other elements of the budget as we move forward, but 10 is a good starting point. Our transportation agreement calls for a 5% increase. We're roughly estimating 5% for dental and anticipating an increase in our utility expenses for 5%. We begin to model this. Keep in mind, right, the importance of the budget assumptions here is for us to model, and so when we come to you throughout the year, you're not like, well, why were you thinking that? Right, so this is kind of a little explanation as to why we're thinking this. And then, of course, staffing. So you may recall, and I'll slightly correct Superintendent Holtzman when he was saying 32, not at all grade levels where we're using a 32-to-1 when we were doing the capacity and utilization. We were using the administrative rule of TPR, right? Our vendor asked, and those were the data points that we asked because we've not necessarily made any official changes. We did, right, as was noted last year in terms of this year's staffing, to focus on those transitional grades, early grades, the transition from elementary to mid, and certainly from mid to high school, right? We've made those accommodations, right? So just to keep that in mind. So again, we just outlined the current administrative role in terms of staffing. Most likely you will see some changes based upon an administrative recommendation.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to stay for FBG update?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
All right.
Oh, so, as you know, Commissioner Ardrey is out of town on business, and essentially our agendas have really focused on the high-level update that Superintendent Holtzman provided you. We've really focused on preparing the information that you have received in workshops. So we're leveraging the committee, if you will, in terms of, one, their experience, and secondly, right, to provide administration and our valued partners guidance to prepare information for the full board's consumption. So that's really been it. We did at the last Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee also spend a little time at a very high-level budget discussion. That is included in the FB&G packet if you wanted to review that. There are some items, if you will, relative to staffing that I'm sure over the coming weeks Mr. Garner and Superintendent Holtzman will share with you in closed session. Thank you.
All right, number 7, PPC update.
All right, I have put together a nice little overview. On our agenda at our last meeting, which was February 5th, we met with the work-based liaison individual who is a new employee, a new coordinator for our district. Her name is Erin O'Leary, and it was a pleasure to be able to meet and connect with her. She came to this position from Craig High School, so she was already in the district, which I think was great. I feel that her background in education was very apparent because she was able to demonstrate a really robust communication system with students and business partners through the newsletter she uses, and I could just see her education background coming through in the way that that program is running, which I think is really important for the students involved. We learned about the Craftsman with Character program, which the district was able to bring back to the district this year. I don't know how long it has been out of practice. Does anyone know on that? But it hasn't been.
This is brand new. We haven't done it before.
I thought it was something that had happened before. Okay, well, that was a misunderstanding on my behalf then. There was a fall cohort that was based through Parker, and the spring, which is currently is now being run through Craig. And basically, and there's also charter school students participating. And how that works is there were 14 students in the program max each semester. So, and we had 14 students participating in the fall, and again, 14 students in the spring. 7 businesses each semester partnered with Craftsman with Character, and it was in a different group of 7 each semester as well. So students arrive at school at 7:30, and so like in the fall they were meeting at Parker. Now in the spring, we're not really spring yet, but they're meeting at Craig. And then there's a shuttle service that takes them to their different business rotations. And they have to arrive early to be able to fit in the 75-minute sessions each day, in addition to their regular classes that they take. This program counts for 1 semester course, but it is a 75-minute a day opportunity. So it's quite a good program for them. Students also engage in college visits, business tours, and a financial literacy program through BCCU. So I thought it was really great to learn about that program. We also learned about the Youth Apprenticeship Program, and this is a 1 or 2 year earn as you learn program. It counts for 450 hours. Students do receive a paycheck, hands-on training, education, and certifications possibly. There are a variety of occupational areas from agriculture, hospitality, marketing, logistics, finance, health, science, so many. 43 students are enrolled in the district currently with this program, and Ms. O'Leary is working on enrolling 6 more currently. We've seen a drastic increase. Chris, what is the update on that number? Do you remember what it was last year for youth apprenticeship? In the teens, right?
No, it wasn't last year, but it was pre-pandemic. We were at 16.
Okay, so that's a huge growth for this program, and I think that you can see by having this program coordinator what a difference it's making in getting students and businesses involved. Upcoming programs happening through this program are the Rock County Career and Technical Educational Stakeholder Meeting, which took place today. There is a youth apprentice job fair in April, and then a School District of Janesville job fair for area businesses and students to connect. Plans are being worked out for that still, but plans are for that to be held at Parker on April 25th for the whole district, for students, juniors and seniors to be able to go and participate, which I have a mom of a student in that grade, and it's always good, I think, for students to be able to connect on job opportunities. So that sounds wonderful. All areas under this umbrella have plans for expansion, including recruiting new businesses, growing the pipeline from Craftsman with Character to youth apprenticeship, etc. For more information, you can go back and watch the wonderful PPC video, and of course you can reach out to Ms. O'Leary for if you really want some more details. It was really nice to be able to connect with her. I'm glad that we got to see her face. We also did a preliminary evaluation of the handbook updates, which of course we talked about tonight in the consent agenda and later on. And we reviewed 15 board policies. So I just want to say a shout out to our admin team that works really diligently on the policy updates, because as we all know, policies are not fun work, but it's important. It's a part of our PPC. One of the P's in PPC, right? And those policies were all presented for you to review in the consent agenda as well. I want to let you know that we met yesterday to set the agenda for March PPC's meeting. And that next meeting is scheduled for March 4th, but yesterday was our planning session. And just to let everyone know, we have a robust plan for the remainder of the school year regarding future topics and presentations. I just want to thank everyone who supports the PPC committee, because we have a really hardworking team, and it's a fun group that I have the pleasure to work with. You can always reach out to me if you have questions about PPC or items that you'd like to see on the agenda. So, any questions?
One thing I would like to see is, the only reason I knew about YA and some of those is, I think being on the board in PPC myself, and I would love if more information could go home to parents or somehow be communicated and shared, because I was overwhelmed, but looking at options for Easton, and we found the one that worked great for them, but there's so many great, business, a co-op and YA and a lot of really good things, so I just think we need to promote it more, because you and I know, because we're here.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, and I think that there are, I feel this often, it's something that I speak about. I have the privilege of having grown up in Janesville and having a lot of connections here. And I have a plethora of people, not necessarily because of my school board connections, but because of my community connections, to be able to reach out to that friend whose kid graduated 2 years ago. And so I can get the inside scoop. But many parents don't have that connection, and sometimes they don't have the comfort level with the educational program and just the structure. And so I think the more we can share, sometimes I think, I don't know what kinds of meetings are available, and if there ever can be a Q&A session, come and learn about this, and an invitation to different groups, that would be great. With having this new individual, I think we have a real opportunity to expand education, and I think that you bring up a really good point, because we didn't in her presentation, I have the paperwork down below in my bag, but there are areas of growth and ways that they're looking to expand, and I think that for sure can be one to be passed on. So
she did a great job helping.
Yeah,
she is who I first started with at Craig for Easton, like last year then, but yeah, it was great. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Future meeting dates and times. Denise?
The Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, February 20th at 4 p.m. here at the ESC. The Personnel Policy and Curriculum Committee will be meeting on Monday, March 4th at 4:30 p.m. here at the ESC. And our next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, February 27th at 6 p.m. again here at the ESC.
And note, Kevin is going to lead the February 27th meeting. So can we invite him to the agenda setting for Monday? I think it'd be helpful, especially given the extended conversation about the planning. Thank you. All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, guys.